And you've got to get these gardens happening, folks. Even if there's bad stuff coming down in the chemtrails, you still need to get gardens growing, because you do not want to be eating genetically modified food. Staying away from the GM food is a really big part of it. It's a huge part of freeing yourself from the control grid, and it's a huge part of maintaining control of the direction your own body is taking, the direction your own life is taking, the direction your species is taking, because nobody else is going to do it for you, folks. And that's one of the big things that's been taken away from people within modern society, is their connection to the earth, their connection to the food that they eat, because we all used to grow gardens when I was a child. My mother had a garden in her backyard. All the neighbours we knew had gardens in their backyard. Everybody at least grew some of their own food to some degree. And we all lived in cities, we all lived in the suburbs, so I'm sure it can be done again. And even though the suburbs have gotten smaller and the house blocks have gotten smaller, which I believe has been done to simply keep people away from the garden and prevent people from ever being able to grow their own food, but even if you live in a situation like that, I'm sure there's some area within your community that somebody owns where you can put it in a communal garden. These sorts of things are very, very important, folks, and gardens are also great places to get to know your neighbours and to get to know other people who come to the garden, so you can exchange ideas and build this common unity in your community. I mean, I know I go on with this all the time, and I continually say the same thing about common unity. I continually say the same thing about breaking down the barriers and getting to know your neighbours, but in all honesty, folks, I can't see any other way to deal with this, because the problems that we face are quite literally so enormous that we need an enormous mass of people, an enormous movement of people to be able to deal with them. And the only way I can ever see us achieving this enormous movement of people is if we become that movement ourselves. And I think this has to be done on an individual level. I don't think it can be done with any organisation. I mean, sure, people will form political parties, the Australian Patriots Party, or whatever party people are forming. And, you know, you can support these sorts of things, not a problem. Every little bit helps. But ultimately it always comes down to what you do on an individual level. It comes down to who you are inside. Because if you're doing what you're doing for selfish reasons, or you're doing what you're doing out of fear, often things are going to come undone. I mean, I do what I do because I truly and honestly believe that it is the right thing to do. I say what I say because I truly, honestly and firmly believe it to be the truth. I believe it to be something that I can offer that will help alleviate the human dilemma. I mean, I don't have much to give, folks. All I have to give is my perspective. And that's why I offer my perspective on these radio shows. And that's what I've been doing so for so many years now, because I believe we have a way through everything that we face. I believe we can come out the other side of this tunnel and be better for the experience. I really do. I don't perceive all to be lost, but by the same token, I do have the foresight and the intelligence to see that we have a very large battle ahead of us. And I also think that this battle is getting larger because we've failed to take the opportunities that have been offered to us so far. Because I believe all these problems, all of these corrupt systems that we're facing, all of these things provide opportunities, folks. But we have to see what's going on, and we have to see the silver lining. We have to see the opportunity within the problem. I mean, the world is really going down a very dark corridor of its existence. Well, humankind, the human race, human civilization at least, is heading into a very, very dark corridor of its existence. And the door is swinging shut, but we still do have an opportunity to change things. As long as we can see the darkness around us, as long as we can see what is going on and see what's being created, what's being erected around us. And that's where you come in. That's where the individual comes in, because in sharing this information, you're bringing light to that darkness. In simply causing your neighbours to question things a little bit. And this is, like I said, folks, this is all I was attempting to do in the first section of the new film, Transformation, was to cause people to question things a little bit. Just have a look at your reality, have a look at civilization, ask yourself how it got here. Ask yourself if you would come up with something like this. Have a look at the education system and consider what it does and how it creates a system that people seem to think is real, but it isn't. It's just an idea. So that's what I was trying to do in the first section of the film. And I think it's important for people to ask these questions, because sometimes that's where the enlightenment comes from. It's in a person's awareness that such questions exist. You don't always have to find the answer, folks. I mean, I can speculate on where we came from, how civilization became this way, but why would you believe me? Why would I expect you to believe me? And why would you think that I would have the answer? Why would you think that anyone would have the answer? Because really the answer lies within. I believe that civilization exists the way it does today because we've lost our connection to that which lies within. And this has caused us to lose our connection with each other, because if we're not connected to ourselves, how can we be connected to anybody else? If we don't understand ourselves, how can we ever begin to understand the reality in which we exist? So the question becomes, why do we not understand ourselves? What happened? How could we have all of this stuff lying around the planet, all of these ancient pyramids, all of these incredible texts and incredible monuments from the past, and not know how they got there? How could we have lost whatever the connection was that we had, which allowed us to build these structures? Because I believe that all of these structures were built by man. I absolutely do. I believe that we had a much higher connection to things. We had a much deeper understanding of reality than we do now. I believe that traces of this understanding can still be found in all of the ancient records. It can be found in all of the modern religious systems, because you find that all modern religious systems have their basis in ancient Egyptian science, really. And what existed in ancient Egypt wasn't a religion as such. It was more of a religion and a science that was combined. This is something that I touched on in my book that I released way back in 2005 or 2006, called Earth's Forbidden Secrets. And what I suggested was that what you find when you look at Egyptian culture and you look at the Egyptian architecture and all the structures is you find a deeper understanding of reality that was both science and religion combined into a way of life. And that's how humanity used to live. And we have the ability to do that, and I believe we can do it again. But first, we have to know who and what we are. We have to occupy ourselves, folks. You know, the Occupy movement was a wonderful thing, but what people fail to see is that humans already occupy everything. We don't have to go out and occupy Wall Street because we already occupy the entire planet. The problem is that we don't occupy ourselves. We don't know who and what we are, and so we don't know how to stand in the power that we inherently hold. But I believe we can do it. I believe we have the power to be all that we can be, and I believe that we have the opportunity to do so right at our feet, right at our fingertips, if we simply choose to see that it's there. It's all about changing your perception, folks. If everybody simply changed their perception of reality, changed their perspective of reality, and changed their perception of themselves, then we could change the world in 3 seconds. And I know I keep coming back to that as well. But then that's why they keep us on the treadmill, folks. That's why they keep it all going. That's why they keep bombarding you with media, bombarding you with subtext and sexual innuendos, keeping you doped up on fluoride and GM food and chemtrails and electromagnetic radiation, because they simply don't want you to look around and they don't want you to notice what's going on. And people are very, very much kept distracted by all of the above, and thus we have the reality in which we find ourselves today. But we will get through it, folks. I mean, it will probably get worse. I'm sure it will have to get a good deal worse before many people will see it. And this is why the powers that be are attempting to widen the gap between the upper class of the workers and the lower class of the workers, because the wider they can make that gap, the more the rich people not only fail to notice what's going on with the poor people, but when they do notice, they simply don't care because they're too caught up in the paper they've managed to collect, and they've already started to develop a sociopathic attitude towards the people around them, because they're trained to do this, folks. All people are trained to be this way. That's the way our educational, the way our social, and the way our business systems and the hierarchy within them actually works. That's why they are all constructed in a hierarchical manner and in a pyramid manner. So it's all compartmentalized. You don't really care about the people working in the lower departments within your corporation. They are just an expendable wing of the corporation. And so it goes on all the way up the pyramid, so that the higher you get on a level of the pyramid, the less you perceive what is going on below you. And so more and more of humanity is discarded along the way. Very clever system, folks, but it is becoming very exposed. It's actually exposing itself. That's the problem with fascism. It ends up exposing itself, and its workings become very clear. Hopefully they will become clear enough for all to see before the final key is turned and the final bars come down, and humanity will rise to the occasion. And that's where shows like this come in, and that's where the things that you do out there also come in, folks. That's why it's so important to spread information, and why it's so important to lead by example in all that you do. Well, we're nearly at the end of the show here. Thank you to all the people who have emailed me and given me kind words about the new film. I'm pleased at the reception that the film has had. I'm sorry if some of the information in there is a little disturbing, but that's just the way it goes. The film is available for download from thecrowhouse.com now. The full version is also posted on Vimeo, and I have a link to that on the film's page on my website, thecrowhouse.com, as well. I've had a lot of people contact me asking me when the DVD of the film will be available, and I have to say that will be available as soon as I get the time to finish the cover and label art, folks. I've got so many things on, but I will endeavour to get that completed for you, and hopefully, tentatively, the DVD may be available within the next month or so. Thank you to all the people who have ever shown support to the website. It is very much appreciated and always very much needed. It's the only thing that keeps the site going, folks. I've got it up there completely free of all forms of advertising. Everything on the website is for free. There's absolutely nothing there for you to buy. It's all free, and the only thing that enables me to do that is the donations that you, the people, make to the website. So thank you very much for helping me keep it going, because you really have provided me with a lot of the faith that I use to continue doing what I do. But that is it for me, folks. We are completely out of time. Thank you very much for spending this time with me today. It's been a pleasure to have your company. I'm actually going to be having 2 weeks off the radio now. I've got some stuff I have to do, but I will be back on the third week to continue the radio shows. Frank will be playing a couple of reruns between now and then, and I will be back again with a new show around about mid-May. Thank you again for spending this time with me today. I will look forward to speaking to you again in 3 weeks from now. Please take care until then. In Lakesh.